So what we are here today for, fair housing. The Federal Fair Housing Act, it was enacted in 1968, so the city mirrored the year. And essentially it says, now the act is huge, essentially it says, it states that all people have an equal opportunity to fair housing in the United States. So if you have the funds, you can pick where you want to live, and that should be it. That's ideal. Doesn't happen, but that's ideal. On the federal level, HUD enforces the act. On the local level, HUD contracts with agencies like a local commission. We're called FAPS, Fair Housing Assistance Programs. But the act covers both public and private housing. So a FAP or a private housing organization, we can all cover public and private housing. So our ordinance, we typically have taken the language from the federal ordinance, as well as there's another ordinance, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission at the state of Pennsylvania. We have pretty much mirrored their ordinance, and our ordinance just says the same thing. It gives all persons the right to live wherever they can afford to buy a home or rent, and helps ensure that fair housing is a way of life in Reading. So again, because we are the city's commission, we focus on city. So there are 7 protected classes as of right now. Race and color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, disability. So familial status can include someone who is currently pregnant. It also can include someone who is in the process of adopting. It can also include foster parents. So if you are not actually that child's parent, it can include you as well. The city of Reading added 2 additional protections in 2009, sexual orientation and gender identity. Now, what I often recommend to people is, I know, you're here in Berks County, but other places like Allentown, they cover marital status, they cover place of birth, ancestry, source of income. Allentown does. So you have to be aware of local ordinances as well as the federal ordinances. Currently, the federal act does not cover marital status, income, criminal history, including sexual offenders and juvenile delinquents, surprisingly. Because when you're a juvenile, when you grow up, hopefully when you know better, you do better, but as of right now, juvenile delinquents are not covered, and non-recovering users of illegal substances. I should say with that though, if you have a couple, or whoever has a couple days of active recovery, then they are covered. So they could have one good solid day in, and they are actively seeking help, then they are covered by the act. What is prohibited? Now, there's a lot in the act, of course, that is prohibited, which is why fair housing isn't always, a fabulous topic. But this part of the act is under actually Section 804. There's a 804A, B, and C, and this covers 804A and B and C. Under refusal to negotiate, rent, or sell due to the 7 protected bases: race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, or handicap. I should say with handicap. So as time has gone on, they are moving to update language. So pretty soon it will say persons with disabilities, but as of right now it'll say disability or handicap. So we're trying to evolve with the language. Make housing unavailable, set different terms, conditions, provide different housing services or facilities, the list goes on. Deny access. I had a situation in Reading, actually, where a couple was trying to buy a home, and they went to the bank. This is what I was thinking of in terms and conditions. The woman was pregnant, and they were like, well, how are you guys going to manage this? If she's pregnant, is she going to stay home? Then what are you going to do about your mortgage payment? Well, that's none of your business. Mm-hmm. That's none of your business. So 804, terms and conditions, so we had to file a case under that. Mortgage lending, this is 805. Refusal to rent, refusal to make a mortgage loan, provide information regarding loans, imposing different terms and conditions. I had a gentleman who was trying to buy a home in Reading, and his bank kept going after him because he had managed to save, like, I don't know, it was $10,000 or something. And they wanted to see exactly where every penny came from. He couldn't account for every penny. So they denied him a loan, even though he had like $10,000 or whatever it was in the bank. They wanted every penny accounted for. Now he is, I don't think he's Haitian. Maybe he was Haitian, but he was not, I guess typical. And she, we went back and forth, and again, I had to file a case because, who does that? I don't think I could account for every penny. Go ahead.
Was that a local lender?
It was. It
surprising.
was. Yeah, it was right downtown, as a matter of fact, which was surprising. In his case, I had them pull 5 people, and the other 4 people who were not minorities did not have to do that same thing. One of them put down $54,000 and did not have to prove not 5 cents of it, which made no sense to me. But they had been a long-term, client of that bank. And she was like, well, we have a long-term relationship with them, so what? But yeah, they ended up having to pay him money, which he used to actually pay off the entire house. This is another part of the act. Threaten or coerce, intimidate. It's a retaliation portion of the act. Or interfere with anyone exercising their fair housing rights or assisting others who exercise that right. So everyone should know that if you encounter something in your daily duties and you believe that your client is being discriminated against, and you explain it to them, and you feel strongly enough that you want to do something about it, you can actually file on their behalf. Mm-hmm. They don't have to do it. You can file on their behalf. So, because sometimes people are afraid to do it. They think, oh, well, if I do it, then people are going to see it on my record. Or, another bank is going to see it, and then they're not going to want to work with me. Or another realtor might see it. Whatever the case might be, people think that there's a Rolodex.
That would be discrimination. So.
Right, exactly. Not realizing that it would be another form of discrimination, right. Go ahead.
So can we read these cases? Are they public?
Actually they are. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're just in the common courts, is that?
HUD, they're under HUD settlements.
HUD?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're under HUD settlements. Well, I should say, not all cases are public. Not every case is public. Discrimination, it's difficult to identify, it's difficult to document, and it's difficult to prove. So the opposite of that, though, is just recently, as a matter of fact, I ran a test on somebody. They're advertising an apartment, and how I found out about it is because a young lady contacted me. And she said, I just called, and the lady said, I'm not showing you this apartment. You can't have kids here. And I thought, heard her wrong. She said, no, Miss Kim, I promise you that's what she said. I said, all right. So I thought, I'll just call. I use my own cell phone, see. So I called her and I was like, da-da-da-da-da. I'd like to see the apartment. I have a 6-month-old. No, by law, she says, a child has to have their own bedroom. I said, what law? Can you, so I can Google it. Can you tell me what that law is? Is it called child bedroom law? What? Oh, I don't know what the law is called, but by law, da-da-da. So I'm not going to let you see the apartment. I said, okay. So she hung up. I called the young lady back. I said, you call her back and act like you're somebody else and see if she'll give you, you know. She called her back and she said she had an older child. And the woman said, yeah, not gonna happen. I thought, oh my God, really, this is happening. So then I had one of my testers call her, single woman, no kids. She set up the appointment for her, gave her the application, showed her the apartment. I set up another test, single man. She showed him the apartment. It's a beautiful apartment. It really is. No problem for the single people that didn't have kids. But everybody who had kids, she did not want to rent to.
But was she discriminated against people who were married, who might have kids?
I didn't try a married couple because that's not what was presented to
Right.
her.
But I'm curious. I would
Single parent. You know what? For you, I'll do it. I'll do it. It's not big enough to have a married couple with a child in the bed. It is only a 1-bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no law that says a child has to have a bedroom. There's no law that says that. No law. She's making that up. People feel as though it's not worth the effort to file because nothing will happen as a result. They don't realize there's actually things that can change. There's law that can change. There's things that can happen for you. So people don't realize that. People don't know their rights. They don't know who they can complain to. You know, we try to get out all the time. Anywhere anybody asks me to go, I try to go. I was asked to go to BTI, I go. I mean, it doesn't matter. County, city, I'll go. People feel that they're going to be retaliated against. So if I tell on my landlord, I had this conversation right before I came here. The landlord said, you better not say anything, because if you do, I'm going to evict you. And I said to her, you realize he discriminated against you, right? So I said, listen, I'll call you. I'm going to go teach a discrimination class, and then I'm going to call you when I come back so we can file a case. So I said, I'll be back right after. Examples. Discriminatory practices. So I just came up with another one, like another agency. As I said, we get together, and they were talking about how one gentleman had an experience where he went with a realtor, and he had gone through his certain neighborhood, and he saw this house that he absolutely loved, Hispanic man. He found a realtor, told the realtor, hey, I absolutely love this house. This is where I want to go. Realtor said, you sure? You sure you're going to be comfortable there? Because, you know, I saw this over in Santa's neighborhood, and it was just right for you. So I'm going to take you over here rather than take you over there. And then when he took him over there,
That's called steering.
Right, exactly. Because steering is a form of discrimination. And the neighborhood he took him to was almost entirely Hispanic. And the neighborhood that he picked was a nice mix. But he did not want to, and he ultimately did not show him that house. So he, of course, went with somebody else. He also filed a case against him. But yeah, now that was blatant. That doesn't always happen like that, though. But yeah, another agency was telling me about that.
Fines.
But landlord refusing to rent, I gave you the situation where the lady, said no kids. So types of cases. 2017, this is from Fair Housing Trend Report, I think it's called. Fair Housing Trends Report. So they do it in 2018 for 2017. 28,843 cases across the country. That's not a lot, it would seem. To me, it doesn't seem like. So FHOs are Fair Housing Organizations. FAPs are what I was saying, Fair Housing Assistance Programs. HUD, and then DOJ is Department of Justice. So the most were filed by FHOs, which are private, actually, Fair Housing Organizations, 71.3%. And the majority of complaints in 2017 were disability related. What do you think the number one complaint in 2018 was? Anybody have an idea? What has been really big in the news? Sexual harassment. Exactly. That is the largest number that has been going in 2018. They haven't completed it yet, but it's like, no, the number is crazy. They even did a task force and a joint between the DOJ and HUD to address. They came up with I think they called it a toolkit, sexual harassment toolkit. I'm like, what do you use the toolkit to bang somebody over the head? Like, I mean, really. But yeah, they have a training toolkit. But so in 2017, it was disability first. Then it was race, 18.5%. Familial status was next, 9.3%. National origin, 6.8%. Sex, which is 6.7%. Color, 1.5%. Lastly is religion, 1.3%.
I would think that one might be higher.
I do too.
That's what I would think.
Yeah, especially with what's been going on, 1.3%. So, advertising. HUD just settled with Facebook a couple months ago. Facebook, which shocked me so much. They had this feature where you could actually turn off, like if any of your profile or preferences said that you were a minority, Facebook could make it so that you would not see certain things like in white neighborhoods or the better neighborhoods. Well, they got sued and they supposedly fixed it. It started in 2016, supposedly fixed it in 2017. Well, HUD found that they didn't. So they sued them again, and they just settled like a couple months ago. And supposedly they finally fixed it, but I don't believe that for a second. But it amazed, like if you read the whole entire thing, it amazed me to read that whole entire thing and how it, tracks with you. I mean, when you're shopping and then something pops up, but it weirded me out to think. That's why I don't use that stuff. The DCR is one I definitely wanted to cover. DCR is Disorderly Conduct Report. That is a local thing. City had it. It started in Norristown, which, by the way, my brother went through it because he's the chief of police in Norristown. So I had to watch him suffer through this. It's a local ordinance where if the cops are called to a property twice in 1 year, whoever it is has to be evicted if it's a rental property. So the case was a young lady who had a boyfriend and he was violent, like extremely violent towards her. She had children and she got a PFA against him. He was ejected from the home, but he kept coming back and beating her up. Cops were called one time. Second time he came, he was there more than one time, more than 2 times, more than 3 times. Last time he came back, her daughter was there. He stabbed her in the neck. And the daughter, she begged the daughter, who's little, by the way, like 5, 6, not to call the police.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was afraid, you know, second time, she would be evicted.
Wow.
So her daughter didn't know what to do. She's little. She called the police. Police came. They called the landlord. A landlord arrived on site when the police were there. They're talking to him while she's there. She's on the way to the hospital. You know, she did get stabbed in the neck. She eventually is evicted. So she, not only is she a victim, she loses her home as a result. So thankfully, there was an outcry, newspaper, and the ACLU got involved, and they sued with HUD. And so they changed that. So now, under DCR, if you have a special circumstance, a disability, if you're a victim of domestic violence, if you have any exemption, you have the opportunity to appeal and appear before a panel. And that panel includes a member of the Human Relations Commission. And so we're the most normal people thinking. Like if you, I mean, police officers, I appreciate them. You know, one's in my family. So, but things are black and white with them. So with us, we understand the circumstances. So that got changed, but just be aware. I threw in signage because in the city, if you didn't know, if you hang up signs, they'll take them down. They don't allow it. Check the different municipalities when you go, if you put your signs up, whatever, you know, we buy houses or whatever, you know, advertising yourself as a realtor or whatever. City doesn't allow it. They pick a specific day and they go and take them all down. And then they destroy them. And those signs are expensive. So just be aware of the ordinances. Violence Against Women's Act, same thing. That's an additional protection for survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, basically coverage so that they are not losing their homes. They're not being thrown out of properties. They're not losing their leases. One lady had to move out of the home, and her landlord wouldn't let her off the lease, and her husband was violent. And so he sued her for the rest of the lease term, even though the husband was staying in the house. So under this act, she eventually got cleared of that. So at the end, and I think you still have the, that is my direct email. Any questions? People send me questions about reasonable accommodations, pet policies all the time. The reason I included my email and not my direct number is because I never answer that phone. I'm not gonna lie to you. I never answer my phone. I always answer email. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I don't mind answering questions. I love them because that means you want to learn. And if I teach you, maybe you'll teach somebody else. And that's what I want. So thank you. You guys have been an amazing audience. Thank you.
Thank you.